have an active window selected, I can do Option Shift and I can do H, J, K, L, and this will actually let me snap my window to different areas. Now this is about the extent of the behavior I get. I don't get window stacking like in DWM. I don't get any sort of fancy... What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Bryan Jenks. If you're new here, on this channel we talk a lot about code, programming, tech, and all things related to programming and tech. And today we're going to talk about my new MacBook Pro. I just got a MacBook Pro 16-inch 2020 version, and I am now transferring everything from my Arch Linux ThinkPad all the way over to this machine, and certain things do not cross over, and some behavior I'm trying to emulate. So let's see how I did all of these things. So with this MacBook, I still wanted to try and maintain some of the things I've become used to in my Arch Linux build. Certain things like Grovebox theme everywhere, dark themes in general, application launching with just the keyboard, such as with D menu, and certain other functionality. I also wanted to maintain a lot of my workflow in the command line, and I've managed to do that on this system, although instead of using D menu, I'm using Alfred and Spotlight. And the Alfred app for using, it's kind of like Spotlight where it launches applications, does web searches or other little things. I'm finding some issues with it that I'll get a little bit more into later, that it's really not even worth my time to do anything other than Spotlight. And Alfred is a free version, but you can pay for upgraded versions, and there's some really cool stuff you can do with it. But for a lot of my use cases, I don't really need that much firepower. We'll get into that in a little bit. One of the most important things I wanted to maintain from my transition from Linux to Mac during this time was tiling window management. I've used the snapping windows in Microsoft Windows, and I didn't like the default behavior that's in Mac. I think there's a couple small little things you can do with like full screen and maybe a little bit of window expansion, but as for like tiling window management behavior, if there is any defaults, they're not great. So one thing I did was I did pay for a single app called Magnet. It's a $2.99 application that will let you change the hotkeys and emulate tiling window management behavior. It's not as extensible and not as many options and customization options as something like i3 or DWM, but at least while on the system, I have something that is good enough to get by. Something important to know is that I recognize that Mac and Apple are a walled garden, and certain things are just not going to be present, or at least you have to really hack this machine apart to get it implemented, and that's not something I want to do. I want to maintain, my warranty and not ruin the computer itself. So I don't expect to have the full range of functionality I had on Linux. That's why Linux is so great. It's so very open. You can do whatever you want. But while I'm on this system, using it for the purposes that I use it for, I still wanted to have some semblance of those actions, those applications, that workflow that I had become accustomed to. So immediately after unboxing and booting up this machine, macOS Catalina, I immediately put it into dark mode. I will always put it into dark mode. I'll put everything into dark mode because I absolutely cannot stand light-themed anything. On this machine, I am currently running iTerm 2, and on that terminal, I am using Grovebox colors. You can see I have my default prompt back, and I do have all of the colors that I had on my old system. So currently, I do have my dock hidden, but sometimes I do have it up. But why do I keep my dock to the left? Some people, like I had somebody tell me, that looks a little bit like GNOME on Linux, and that whole look and feel. And I have an Ubuntu machine, so I knew what they were talking about. That isn't why I did this. I put my dock, and when I'm on Windows, I do the exact same thing with the taskbar. I always put it on the left for a very practical reason. When you have monitors or your laptop screens, you always have more horizontal than vertical space. So putting it at the bottom doesn't make sense because now you've even further limited the limited amount of vertical space that you already had, whereas you have all of this horizontal space that you can fill up with just a single bar, and if you want, like I did, you can even have it hidden when you don't need it. So in that case, you actually save vertical screen space, and that's really the reason that I do it. So that's it. So I mentioned I'm using Magnet for my tiling window management. What does this look like? So if I open up a window, let's just open iTerm 2, my Magnet key bindings are all dealing with the Option key as well as Option Shift, and this deals with movement and general selection on my displays. So if I have an active window selected, I can do Option Shift and I can do H, J, K, L, and this will actually let me snap my window to different areas. Now this is about the extent of the behavior I get. I don't get window stacking like in DWM. I don't get any sort of fancy resizing behavior with this. It's pretty much as good as it's going to get. And I have also the corner views, which I don't really use too much. I mostly just use the half and half snapping. And you can change these key bindings. I just found the option works best for me. But when I have multiple windows open and I want to just quickly, snap that over there, I can just change the font size. It works really well for what I'm using it for. It's not as great as i3 and what I'm used to. It's not as great as DWM, but for having a solution that at least lets me have some basic tiling window management behavior, it works. I don't want to have to click and drag my windows and then manually resize them. That's ridiculous. I would not want to do that. So at least having this ability to just snap it to half the screen or put it down here to see something else, put it into the corners, this works. It works well enough for what I'm going to use it for on this system while I'm using this system. So I said I'm using Alfred and Spotlight. Spotlight is the default searching bar application launcher that you get when you start using macOS. And when I open it up with, I don't remember what the default key binding is, but I changed Spotlight to Option Space, and Alfred is Command Space for me anyways, because I wanted two separate options. And I've been playing around with both of them, and I'm actually leaning more towards Spotlight. I don't really use this to just launch a file, which Alfred can do, but what I really find annoying is that I open up my system preferences a lot. So if I open up system preferences, I can type SYS, and there's my system preferences in Spotlight. But when I do Alfred and I do SYS, it's searching for like stuff on the internet. It doesn't even think of to search for my system. And normally you start off with a single quote to open up a file or something, just as something else to try. Maybe I'm missing a hotkey. Maybe I'm not reading some documentation that I should be. But for the most part, like Alfred is really great for like launching applications, but I can do that with Spotlight as well. So I'm really finding Spotlight to be the better one in this instance for a lot of my use cases. And I've heard that Spotlight used to be really bad, but it's gotten a lot better. And I mean, it can even do math. So I might just remove Alfred eventually. And there are a lot of really powerful things I've seen Alfred be capable of. And on their website, they show a lot of different functionality, macros, document templates, a lot of stuff. It kind of covers a lot of different use cases, but it's a paid application and it is kind of pricey. And if you can write shell script, you kind of have template documents, you have Vim, you have ulti-snips, you don't really need all those things. You can find plenty of other options. And so it looks like I might prefer Spotlight until I find something that it really just can't do well. So one really cool thing that I never really used on Windows, if they even have this type of feature, is something, these tags. I never really used anything like this before on my system, but I'm finding one very particular use I actually would like to use this for. And in my documents in my research directory, I have my actual research papers and things that I'm reading. Like in here, you can see this one has a green tag. On my reading, I have a yellow, and then in unread, I have orange and red. So that's way, if I was going to just look for something, I can just say, hey, what is currently not done? And in this case, it would be like these research papers I have not read. Which one am I reading next? It's that one. Which one am I currently reading? That. And which ones are done? And in this case, I found it really cool just to sift through that stuff very quickly, even though I do have it in a directory structure that is conducive to this organization. But in this case, it's also really cool to just do that. I'm also doing something similar with my email. I'm not going to open up my email because I have private stuff in there, but with email, I actually do have Proton Mail. So like the Proton Mail bridge, I had to get set up. It was super easy on this machine compared to doing it with NeoMut on Linux. And I'm actually not minding the email in macOS. The email application is actually not bad. I kind of like it. And after being with NeoMut, sure, I got W3EM set up on that to view HTML. It was still sort of annoying in a lot of ways. And there are a lot of graphics and things included in email, or certain things that it just became a pain where I still was opening it in the browser. I still would use NeoMut. I would still use it when I go back to Linux. But for the meantime, I do like a lot of the flagging options in the email application. I like just the gesture swipes I can do for like left and right to mark it unread and delete it. It is really convenient. One thing I really like about this computer is the touch movements. The 3 fingers to look at my different workspaces or to burst out all of the applications currently open on a workspace is really awesome. And then also just being able to do 2 finger swipes to go forward and backwards in a application is really cool. Also deleting and making my emails unread is really awesome. I just really like a lot of the touch features on the trackpad, and the trackpad alone is just really nice on this computer. And one thing I was really surprised to learn is that some of the same touch motions also work on Windows. I was actually messing with my work computer this morning, and I found out that the 3-finger swipe upwards will actually show you all the workspaces you have open on Windows. And if you haven't seen any of the Windows workspace hotkeys, where you do Control Window D to make a new workspace, and you can do Window Control Window arrow keys to shift back and forth through them, Window Control F4 to close them. But when you do the 3-finger swipe up, you can actually see all your open workspaces. If you're on a single workspace and you're not doing the swipe up, you can actually swipe with 3 fingers left and right and actually scroll through your applications, and for whichever one is currently currently actively selected, instead of doing like endless Alt tab or Window tab to go through and cycle through your current active applications on your workspace. So I am using iTerm 2 as my terminal right now on this system. As you can see, I do have my Grovebox color themes. And how did I get the color theme into this terminal? It wasn't as straightforward as something like getting into ST. So what I actually had to do was go to this website. So this website, iTerm2colorschemes.com, I just went to this site, I scrolled through, or really I just did a search for Grovebox, found what I was looking for. You click the hyperlinked name, and then it opens up basically an XML document, and then I just copied this and saved it as the name of the file right here, Grovebox dark iTermColors dot. Actually no, I think that's the actual file path. It's just iTerm colors, not even XML. And so once you do that, you have the file saved to your desktop and you're ready to import it into iTerm. So with iTerm open, you'll now have the menu open up here. What we're going to do is go to iTerm 2, Preferences, and you're going to go to, I think it's Profiles. Profiles, Colors, Color Presets right here, and then you're going to import the actual document, which is that .iTermColors document. Basically, it looks like XML. And you can see I have mine here, Grovebox dark.iTermColors. That's it. Now you have Grovebox, and that's it. You can do that with any of those themes. I personally will do Grovebox on all the things because I love that color theme. And of course, one thing that I will miss dearly on Arch is Pacman, the package manager for Arch Linux. Now, macOS doesn't come with a package manager by default, but there is something, I think it's just the open source project Brew. So I do have Brew installed. So if I run Brew ls, it'll tell you like what I have installed right now. I have a couple packages I've installed so far, not everything that I'm used to, because I'm used to the Arch Linux AUR. There is everything in there. It's either a community package or somebody or their mother has packaged something to be in the AUR. So everything's there. But Brew, I'm having issues downloading certain things, and certain like X software, Xorg, Xlibs, any of these different things for some of the software I'm used to using is really, really troublesome to either get installed, get it working. And so certain things I'm just having to give up on because I just don't want to put in the time. One of the reasons to get this system was that I did not want to have to put in as much time tinkering because I don't have the time right now. But some of the things that I can install with this were incredibly useful. I got shell check, trash CLI, Pandoc, all the stuff I needed to do, LaTeX compilation, and it's been interesting. It's not my favorite. I definitely prefer Pacman, but it gets the job done. And of course, the first things I installed with it were the GNU core utils, so I had all of the command line utilities I'm used to using, and I also wanted to get the default shell on this. The default shell for macOS now is ZSH. I have never used ZSH, and now because it's the default on this, I figure, okay, I might as well just learn ZSH. But in the meantime, I needed to get some stuff up and running until I can now spend some time learning ZSH and shift over and really get to know it. If there's any nuances, I need to learn those. But for the meantime, I just downloaded the most recent version of Bash, made that my current shell. So now I'm currently running Bash, I think 5.2, because one of the reasons I've said before about the portability issue with macOS is that if you don't know how to do these types of things, by default, you're running Bash 3.2 or some other number of an older version of Bash because of licensing issues. So macOS will run an old version of Bash, which means a lot of the things will break. So if you don't have the newest version of Bash, if you got Brew, you can easily just install it and then switch your shell with the chsh-s command and then list off your shell. Mine is listed at user local bin bash, and that's my current shell, and that's just Bash 5.2, whatever it is. And one of the last things that I am kind of annoyed by, but at the same time it's still kind of fine, is LaTeX compilation. So I do have some LaTeX documents, and I got one on my desktop, and I'll show you what I mean. If I open up iTerm, I go to my desktop, and I go Vim, Notes. Okay, so now I'm in the LaTeX document. Now, if I just try to compile this with my compiler script from Linux, it doesn't work. And it didn't work. I had to install MacTeX, I had to install LaTeX Make, I had to install BibTeX. It was kind of a hassle, to be honest, to just get it to compile. And even once it's compiled, I still have some leftover files that the tech clear script that Luke Smith wrote that I still use isn't picking up for some reason. And it's mostly just annoying. It works, but it's annoying. But I'm also still having issues with actually getting the references to compile. So if I run this and actually compile this document, it will compile. You'll see all these see all these things here. If I close this, weirdly enough, these are still here. They shouldn't be, but I do have the PDF, and you know, it does render some of this stuff, but I actually have issues with it actually rendering the references. I get issues with BibTeX. I've tried things with Bibber and BibTeX. It's mostly annoying, and it's really at this point on this machine just been maybe I should just write my notes in Markdown, put them in VimWiki, use my tagging system. And this was an idea I had about VimWiki, is instead of I could use tags saying, you know, cites, like it's citing something, cites whatever my BibTeX references is for something. Like I have a paper like by Mold, I think 2006. I could say, you know, cites Mold 2006 with an underscore in between those two things, and actually be able to use tag searching to see which papers cite which other papers or which ones are cited by that one. And in that way, I could actually make like a web of my research paper references and follow my research trees. And that's an idea. And it's kind of just been getting that point and coming to a head because I'm getting really annoyed with trying to deal with LaTeX compilation and just the verbose syntax. If I'm going to write a thesis, I'm probably just at this point not going to do it in pure LaTeX. I'm probably going to go and use the thesis down package in R that uses LaTeX templates and fiddle with something instead of making it from scratch. But for now, I got some of this to work. It works okay, but for references, it's kind of annoying. So I hope you found this interesting. Let me know if you want me to talk about anything in particular or in specific. If you're new here and you haven't already subscribed, please click that subscribe button and ring the bell so you get notified of any new videos. I recently just made a Discord channel, so you can join that. The links are in above and down in the description below. And a quick shout out to the supporters of the channel. Thank you Alberto and Devin for supporting me on Patreon, and for everyone else who donates, thank you guys for making this more incentivized for me to make more content. I really do enjoy this, and I would love to see you all in the Discord chat. So I will see you guys all in the next one.